Welcome to the Crypto Podcast. You can find all our episodes on thecryptopodcast.org. We're also on BitChute and YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I've also got 4 other podcasts, as well as being a podcast coach. You can find everything on via that link /podcaster. I'm looking forward to this conversation today because a lot of my guests might know that I actually worked in construction in Ireland for, about 15 years, as well as in Poland. So it's a subject that I love, as well as being blockchain technology with the Crypto Podcast. So my guest, all the way from America, she's the CEO and co-founder of Digibuild. Please welcome April Moss.
Welcome, and thanks for having me on, Roy.
Yeah, no problem. So, we know that you're the CEO and co-founder, but you might just let the listeners know a little bit more about April.
Yeah, you bet. So I co-founded Digibuild about 4 years ago with Rob Salvador, who's the CEO. He grew up in construction, had his own construction business with his dad. And my career path with Rob was that he worked for me when I was at Procter & Gamble. And years later, he said, hey, you want to come start found a company with me? And just because I have an interest in new business development, my entire career, I worked 21 years at Procter & Gamble in different various roles, product supplies, logistics, worked with building out sales teams. And then I worked for Starbucks. Someone might know them, big retailer out there as well, building out their first ever sales organization. And then I've since then been about another, oh my goodness, at least 17 other teams. So that's why Rob had me coming over to help build Digibuild.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think because having kind of looked at your own career, because I've done a lot of real estate myself, and like working with Procter & Gamble that you've done and everything, I think all the experience that you've done is ideal for what you've got. So you might kind of just go into the different, I'm not sure what the real estate, was it just selling, or did you actually work on stuff that was under construction as well and under build? Yeah. But I know Coldwell Banker, they're a big international organization.
Yeah. Yeah, so early on in my career, before I started with Procter & Gamble, I worked for a real estate company out of Gundaker Realtors. They're part of Coldwell Banker out of the Midwest, and did that for several years. Really enjoyed it. My husband, however, was in the military, so it wasn't an ideal career for me to do because it was difficult to move around. I also worked for Construction Specifications Institute out of DC while we were there. Really, gave me that love again for construction and for real estate. My dad was in real estate when I was younger, so that's kind of the connection with Rob and I as well. And he loved what he did. He was very good at it. My story is probably not as exciting, and it's pretty sad compared to most in the construction industry. But when you have 150 people coming together to do a project, and they're all from different companies, and they're all trying to synchronize, and they're all waiting to get paid, and they're all waiting for supplies and materials to show up, as you know, it becomes very stressful. And sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't as a subcontractor. And there's just lots of legalities and arbitration that goes on. And that wore on him after a while. And when I was 9, he ended up committing suicide. And part of that was because he couldn't provide for his family on a regular basis. So my passion behind Digibuild and with Rob is that we're building an ecosystem where it doesn't matter where you are in the globe, doesn't matter how big or small your company is, our product, which is a bid order track supply chain management software for construction, can benefit anybody within the ecosystem. So we're very proud of that because we feel like even the smaller guys could get on and get exposure to larger companies and have access and accessibility to those. So that's kind of my passion behind what we're doing today.
No, I love it. And with your father, it's a very young age to lose your father, but I know it's a very tough industry because I was very close with a lot of tradespeople and everything. And it's like, there's a lot of alcoholics in the stuff. There's a load of different problems in that industry, but I know the big boys, big construction companies, they don't pay the small boys because they know they can't fight them in court, and they can actually, they use delay tactics and everything so that they're empty. And it's just a big game to them. And that's massive. And it seems to be an international thing.
It is. And what's really cool about you and crypto and why I loved getting on your podcast is our software. We use artificial intelligence to go out and find suppliers all over the globe. Doesn't matter where you're at, we can get a supplier for you. We're saving anybody between 10 and 15 to 20% just on bids because we can bid products, 10, 15 different sources where most are an average of 3. The other cool thing is that we're built on blockchain. So we have that Hyperledger fabric. We have a partnership with IBM where we built our product on blockchain for that transparency in construction. So since we do all the bid order and tracking, there's never a dispute about what the supplier said, what the subcontractor said versus what the GC said, because it's all being recorded within the block. So we don't use crypto, but we do use the use case that crypto is built on, and that's the blockchain. So that's what's exciting to us. We're driving transparency through this whole entire process.
And I suppose you would get a main contractor on board to start doing this, which in turn, like the procurement teams, the subcontractors, so everything is fully traceable. So when you've got, say, a subcontractor and they're supposed to have an air handling unit or something like that when it's coming, like just from reviewing this, is that correct in how I'm saying this?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So from the time we do takeoffs, we'll take those takeoffs and blueprints and we'll put them into our system. We'll go out and get bids, 10, 15 bids for you. We'll do it locally, but then we can go around the globe. We're bidding all over the place right now. So it's really exciting because there's actually a company in Ireland I connected with at London Build we might be working with. And then we actually track all those orders right to the job site, and 24/7, the owners, the GCs, the subcontractors, everybody can get in and watch that tracking of where it's going. So we have this cool software, 80% is software. Then we haven't forgotten the human element. Human element is never going to change in construction. People want to talk to somebody. Where's my product? What's happening? I see this in the system, but I don't understand it. So we have construction procurement managers on the back end that are dedicated to different teams. So extension of the construction companies, teams, and they're calling those suppliers if they see anything bizarre going on. Hey, something's not right here. You're not responding. And they get on the phone and they'll actually contact them. Then they'll write the notes right in the software. So it is recorded on the blockchain. I talked to so-and-so at this time, this date, this is how they responded. So everything's transparent. So that's, the number one reason why projects are over, not on time and they're over, budget is because of supply chain right now. And it's getting worse. So we're pretty excited to have something very unique. Very few people are in this space and we're pretty much dominating that. We have the largest global supplier database, and then we're working on the largest sustainable supplier database as well.
Brilliant. And with kind of variations in say valuations, first of all, when they're putting in a claim, because normally that, whether it's with, say, the client, they're putting in a claim for a certain percent, is that something that can be incorporated into the system?
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Yep. And what's really cool about this within our suppliers, we're looking for small business owners, minority-owned businesses, women-led businesses, veteran-owned businesses, and it can be veterans anywhere in the world. And what we're doing is all suppliers get on our platform for free. We don't charge them anything. So if you got a small company that's building some sustainable product that nobody's heard about, we actually give them access to global construction companies to be able to bid on those projects for their supplies. So it's really exciting. And then you think about sustainability, everywhere, everyone's requiring that, hey, a certain percent of this has to be sustainable. And so now we're opening up a door for construction companies to be able to easily find those sustainable products while helping out the smaller businesses and little guys in the world to have access to all this. So to us, that's our passion. We're creating an ecosystem, we call it the Digi family, and just bring those connections together. So for us, it's pretty motivating just because of our own personal stories, but also it's fun to see us change an industry completely.
Excellent. And with, say, bill of quantities, then when a site is broken down into all the costings and for variations, because that tends to be one of the reasons why a lot of people fall out and there's arguments. But if you kind of do everything as per the bill of quantities, there's a complete breakdown. Is that something that's covered in it?
Absolutely. It's all covered in there. And so we have a template and we convert everything to whether it's going to be square foot or units or counts each is whatever that is. We have an algorithm that takes all the catalogs from different suppliers. And so when you're in there, you'll see exactly the information you need. You can always request more information, talk to the suppliers, chat with them directly through our system. So that's really cool that we have all that pricing. We also do predictive analytics, and the predictive analytics says, hey, let's upload your project timeline and make sure that you're getting the bids in on time and ordering things on time based on what's available out there. So like switch gears right now, at some places you're up to 65 weeks before you can get a switch gear, which is insane. Cabinets, 4 to 6 months. It used to be even further out. So what we do is we not only do we have it, hey, based on your schedule, this is what you want to do. We have the opportunity to let people see, hey, I don't care about what it costs. It's more about the timing and getting this source. So I'll pay a higher price, and they can determine that to get this switch gear here, 2 months earlier or whatever that looks like, right? So there's lots of options, and there are different people choose different suppliers for different reasons for their projects. It's nice having all of it in one place where they can just sort through, and they can look at as many suppliers as they want, right? And then if they have something very unique that they're looking for, we'll actually go send our AI out there to find it. We'll call. So there's this whole support team behind you trying to make sure that your project gets on time and within budget.
And I don't know, is this an international thing, but I know that in Ireland, you'd have a thing called the price variation clause. So normally it was happening with government jobs, but if it was done over kind of like a 2-year period, that you were accounting for inflation and wage increases and everything during that time. But obviously there can be setbacks, and it's is that anything, maybe it's an Irish thing, but is that something that...
We do have that it depends on the contract, right? So sometimes they'll sign that up. Most suppliers won't do that. They have, hey, this is the bid and this is where it expires. You can do special programs or deals with them. So on the private side, on the government side, they do have a little bit more restrictions. And again, it depends on what the project is and where it's located in the US, because every municipality, sometimes when you get into New York, has different standards and different timelines and different requirements. So the government does require a little bit more of that than you would on the private side sector.
And I'm not sure if this actually will solve a problem, but there is a lot of fraud in this industry with kickbacks and everything. And by having full traceability, like somebody can see from other projects that, hey, there's something not adding up here. I mean, I've seen that a lot happening over the years. And would I be correct in actually assuming that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so what's happening here is a lot of time we're like, oh, GC bad guy, but they're really, they're trying to do their business, and it's this ecosystem that's been created over so much time, and everybody's just in it, right? And they're all running like little hamsters on a wheel, and they can't jump off. We're hoping to be a jump off point for everybody in the industry. So even for subcontractors, a lot of the time they're marking up when they're going out and getting their bids, they're marking it up 20-30% and charging the GC for that, right? So now there's going to be, even the GCs won't see the pricing that the subcontractors are going to be providing them. But what it is driving is that transparency, where some of the GCs are saying, you know what, sub, we'll go ahead because we can bulk order, we can save a lot more money margins. We're going to go ahead and order it, and we're just going to have you actually do the work, right? So there's a lot of this going back and forth of like, hey, yes, you want to, subs are doing it because they're trying to protect themselves. Like you said, they don't have the funds or the monies to go, to arbitration or pay for lawyers to help them get out of something. So they're just trying to cushion themselves to make sure that they have what they need. And then they're usually the ones where if something's late, that it doesn't matter, they still have to deliver their product, their services, and so they're trying to cushion it. So we're trying to break that. This is just one little piece of what we're trying to break down in the industry, to bring those organizations and groups together so that everybody's is a little bit more fair and equitable.
Yeah, very good. And like on another side, then kind of protecting, say, the contractor or an organization, sometimes they'll have competitive advantage because of the suppliers they're using, and they don't want people to know where they're getting it from. Is that or is everything just on full display? You can.
Yeah, they do that quite a bit, but what we're finding, like we've had people come to us and say, GC say, oh, well, we've got our suppliers and they're giving us the best deal. And we're like, okay, just don't tell us who your supplier is. Tell us what they bidded you, right? What the bid was. And we'll take that and go out and show them within our system within, minutes, and show them that, you're really not getting the best price. Maybe you're getting it delivered on time, and that's more important for you. But I just provided 10 more bids that show you that you're really not getting the best deal. So, and we also bring those suppliers on, because some government contracts, some big GCs, they actually require that you're going to go work with this company because we have a deal with them, right? And so we just bring those. There's still a huge benefit of just bringing your suppliers on board. We add them to our system. Suppliers love it because all of a sudden now they get to bid on more projects. So, and they get on for free into the system. So they get on, and they're willing partners with us to do all this so that the tracking's there. And it's just more transparent. So we really haven't had any pushback. Out of the hundreds and hundreds of suppliers that I've talked to, thousands now of suppliers over the last year, I've only had one company say they did not want to be on our system because they absolutely could not believe they were getting it for free. It was crazy. I was like, okay, but you are. I can give you references, but one out of thousands and thousands, we're good. Well, we're okay with that.
That's brilliant. And like, one of the things that happens on construction projects is somebody will give you a competitive price, and they'll give you the delivery dates that you're looking for, say 2 weeks, and it turns out to be 6 weeks. So I'm assuming with your system, that's flagged so that because that's a major problem. It can have a knock-on effect, and which in turn leads to litigation then.
Yeah. So what we have is a bunch of sequences of notifications. So as you get closer to when that product's supposed to be ordered, we notify everybody in the ecosystem. This has to be ordered. So it goes out to everybody, sees it, whoever's part of that ecosystem, right? Even the suppliers, hey, this has to be ordered. So then the contractors go in, they order their product. And then as it gets closer to the delivery date, we have multiple notifications. And if we're not seeing a response from the supplier, we're on the phone with them, figuring it out. And if it's getting closer and they're playing games with us, right, we're not sure. So suppliers do that too, right? Then we're automatically going and finding and sourcing, trying to find like a backup plan just in case, sending our AI out there to go do some work for us just to make sure. But at that time, it's like we're getting on calls with them and really doing some heavy lifting on behalf of our clients. And we've had to do that a few times. Surprisingly, it's not as much because with the system, they're notifying us, oh, we found out the manufacturer is not going to get it to this time now, or something's going to happen, right? And so there's this wheeling and dealing that goes on between the general contractor and supplier because it's known, right? There's a known problem right now that we need to go solve. So just having information, even if it's bad news, but bad news traveling fast versus too late is better, right? So there's at least some way that we can maybe recoup some of that time. But we're also finding where we're trying to collaborate with groups of people to actually buy bulk and then store it somewhere and warehouse it. So people were just in time delivery. Those days are gone. If you're still trying to operate on that, that's a mistake. And people are still doing that and they're causing their own issues. So it's like they want this just in time and they don't want to put out the money. I get it, understand it, but they're actually hurting themselves longer term. So we're trying to work and collaborate with different areas within the US where we have some warehousing. We're even providing, collaborating with other companies that'll come in and do FF&E for hospitality, because we're across hospitality, life sciences, government, oil, gas and oil, railroads. It doesn't matter. We can do a general construction, institutional. We're doing all of it because it's just a matter of going and finding stuff.
Brilliant. And like when I did a development here in the city center of Poland, it was 31 units, apartments, and a few offices. And like working with the banks, you had to give the valuation and stuff. Is this something that the banks are getting on board, that they can actually go through the system rather than kind of having everything digital and then doing paperwork with the banks?
That's interesting. We haven't done that yet, but we are finding pre-construction. So that, I mean, developers. So to your point, like owners and developers who are funding all this, they are very interested in forcing the GCs and everybody to use Digiprocure. And the reason they're doing that is because they want visibility and they're spending this money and they're the one that's going to pay the price, right? So from that standpoint, those are coming in as owners are absolutely really supportive of what we're doing and actually mandating it to anybody that wants to be part of their project. From a banking standpoint, what's interesting is because we're a Y Combinator backed company, we've talked to thousands of investors across the globe. We're connected with lots of banks. We actually are helping companies fund their projects now. So like we have one company that's got 10 hotels they want to build out. The bank pulled out, got nervous, scared, it was in hospitality and they're like, oh, and it was, who knows why they wanted to do that. So because of our connections, we've been connecting our clients with money so that they can fund it. So then that we can be part of, get the project, right? So there's all this little organic stuff that's building out that we think about from a long-term roadmap. What does that look like? So one of the things that keeps coming up was we didn't do takeoffs initially. Well, then we just kept getting asked and asked and asked. And we're like, you know what? We just need to do this because it's a need out there. So we're doing it, which makes sense because then we just take those takeoffs into the system and start bidding and ordering on behalf of the client. So we're excited about that. The other thing that's organically growing is this whole thing on carbon credits, right? So some of forward-thinking people we have on our board, and then some of our investors are like, is there a future where you can actually procure carbon credits through Digiprocure, right? And so we're looking into that long term. And then the other piece that keeps coming up is, can we procure labor? Because labor is a major, major issue right now. And we're looking into what that looks like. Sometimes that's just naturally happening. Like if you think about tile, usually you're procuring the materials and you have the installers right there. So we're creating this credit and reputation kind of thing for not only suppliers. Did the suppliers do what they say they're going to do? Was it on time? Did they communicate? There's like the score we're using. And then even for those doing the labor with it, that would be part of it. So I'm very excited about the future and where we could go. But I think that's a great question, is how we tie that all in together into the ecosystem.
Like that's something that I hope you really nail down, because lots of people, even when they're building their own house, they put their full investment into this. And like everybody that I talk to have problem with contractors. And if you have a system that even when they're building a one-off house, because there's millions of that happening around the world, and they can find out about the subcontractors and the labor and everything, because there's people, they don't have formal training and they just pretend, and then what they do is they close the company and they open up a new company the next day. But if you've got proper ID, you nip that in the bud, because there's so many people after losing life savings because of that corruption.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Yep. So we're trying to help a little bit in that system. And that's what causes that stress, right? Think about the stress that goes on small subcontractors, business, homeowners. This industry is absolutely brutal.
No, brilliant. And just curious with, say, if it's, it can be any kind of development, but if it was real estate, because I know that some organizations, they build and they give it to one realtor, but others it's like an open, that whoever's on the AMS system or whatever system that there is it possible that even the sales are actually logged, so that it just prevents, because there's a lot of admin errors in actually saying who sold what and whatever, whereas if it's on the system once a contract is signed.
We don't have that yet. Rob's vision for, initially we started doing an entire end-to-end project management software, but it was just a lot to chew off at one time. And it was just because you're actually building multiple products, right? And so we got together with IBM and decided, we brought in all these contractors, talked about Hyperledger Fabric, and found out what's next. That was in October 2019. What's really next? What should we be focused on? Because we were starting to get too distracted. And really out of that became the supply chain issue. So that's what our focus is now. But we believe that there is still, even with Procore out there, Autodesk, we believe that there's a need in a bigger opportunity to be able to have everything in one ecosystem. And a lot of those you're integrating with people, but people don't like that. They have to jump in and out of different software. So is there a way that we can integrate and use it where we need to, but really build out the ecosystem you're talking about? And, that hasn't left Rob's mind. If you talk to Rob, he'd drive anybody nuts with all of his ideas and where he wants to go. In fact, he'd scare people. But that's what we love about it, right? That tech forward in an industry that's not. So right now, we're not really doing anything yet in that area.
And is it just on PC based, or have you got apps, Android and Apple, that people on construction site can actually log in and do this?
Yep. It's all, up and running and doing really well. And we constantly taking feedback. We're very close to our customers. This software has been built by builders for builders. And I know a lot of people take that and say, oh, our software does this, but they are so into it. Almost all of our investors at Digibuild are from the industry, which is super exciting, because they're using the product. So that's even more exciting because they get to say, well, we don't like this, or could you add this, or what's the next roadmap? So sometimes that can be overwhelming, your investors trying to explain, but they're very respectful in letting us do what we need to do to be successful. So I think that's really cool.
And like when somebody is updating something or making notes, is there a voice option as well, or is everything to be typed?
Everything's typed right now, but we did actually get that feedback of could I speak and get in there. The problem with that is, Siri, have you ever done a text and talked to Siri on your iPhone?
It doesn't understand my accent.
And it doesn't understand
the only time it worked is I said, Jesus, will you listen to me? And it gave me 3 options for Jesus.
well, she doesn't like me because I'm always yelling at her. So it's, I think I got banned or something. She won't type anything, but that's a big joke with all my friends and all the employees. They're like, that was April's text. We kind of know what she means. So that's what we worry about is you've got to really have a good voice recognition. And because we're global and different languages, that's the other piece we're trying to figure out is taking some of those softwares out there and converting, and how do different companies, like we're working to expand into the UAE. We're looking at the UK area. So there's lots of things happening right now, and just we're walking through everything right now, doing some pilot tests globally. So suppliers,
I think with the UK it's tricky with everybody because of the Brexit thing. It's like, it was so easy before, even with Ireland, because they do so much trade with the UK. So, I think it's
now Ireland is really coming together. I mean, the stuff I'm reading, like you guys are really collaborating in Ireland, just because you have to now, right? There's just a lot of things happening even there. Your ecosystem's changing pretty big because of that Brexit.
Yeah, no, definitely. So because it seems mainly would be the general contractor would be the main client as such, because if you're bringing in the suppliers and they don't have to pay, they just come in. But I presume like subcontractors as well would be part of your client, because a lot of subcontractors are massive. We would have done jobs and like Johnson & Johnson, and with the ducting contractor alone could be over $1 million. So
we work with large subcontractors, and when GCs. So the real cool about our pricing model is there's no you can have how many users you want. Most subscriptions are like, oh, you get 3 users or 5 users. We don't play the user game. Just because of construction, if a contractor is saying, hey, I want my subs to go bid this stuff, well, we're like, great, however many subs. So we charge a flat fee of $500 a month while you're not procuring. And then we charge between 3 and 5% of procurement. And then as it gets to a higher level, then it comes down. And usually we save everybody between 10 to 20% on their bids. So it's a win-win. Even if you only save 5%, you're paying 5%, but you save 10%, you're still saving. And those margins, even if it's only 1% margin, that's hard to come by, to be able to get. And then to have the ease of someone else, we saved. So one contract with a Marriott in Atlanta, Georgia, it was an 80,000 square foot location. We saved them close to $800,000 just on their bidding. and 600 hours in their labor time. And they supplied those numbers to us for the labor. So we were able to benchmark based on what they normally get, based on averages, the RS means of what, normally is out there in their particular market. And we were able to show them how much we save them. And every month we give our customers that reporting so that they see what benefit they're getting. It is a win-win for everybody. We're trying to, it's percent of procurement. And like, I know some other companies, bigger companies, charge percent of project. Well, for us, it's like, no, we're in procurement. We're just going to charge for procurement. And it's been incredibly receptive. Then that $500 a month that you've been paying just to keep you in the loop and keep things rolling until you actually have to procure, all those $500 gets rolled into your procurement, taken off at that end. So it's a sweet deal. It's a win-win for us and for anybody that wants to be part of the ecosystem.
And just on the kind of back end then, does it all go on blockchain technology that it can be seen anywhere, or is it just on your system alone and it can't be seen elsewhere?
Yeah, it's on our system now. We're still building out the blockchain. We've got the hashes. We're working on, because we're still developing the product and looking at different features, we did not build out the entire blockchain. So right now we've got all the ledger, all those pieces in place, and we're building out the next phase of that. So right now it's not distributed to everybody yet with the nodes, but we'll get there.
Well, listen, April, thoroughly enjoyed this conversation because it's something close to my heart, and I definitely have to get you back as you advance, because I mean, this is, it's changing constantly. It's just changing constantly,
Yeah.
But I love what you're doing because it's badly needed. So you might let the listeners know where they can find you.
Well, great. And when we go to announce we're going global in our first opening, I'd love to be able to announce it on your podcast.
Sure.
So it's if you want to contact me, April Moss at Digibuild in LinkedIn, or you can just do info@digibuild.com.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put the links both on the audio and the video. Thank you very much, April.
Thank you.
So that's all for the Crypto Podcast. You'll find all our episodes on the cryptopodcast.org. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube, and you'll find my further podcasts along with my coaching bio.link/podcaster. Until next week, take care.